What can money never buy? A better schedule. We know what they look like. Life events attended, great trips flown, and even better ones from trading up. Less trips to the training center, better commute results. Less frustration watching the people junior to you get trips you want. A better work-life balance. In short, a better life. Let's help you find a path to your best life. Welcome to PBS 2.0, a guide to bidding and trip trading. I'm calling this Lesson 1, What Are We Doing? If you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there. I'm Gene Kowalski. I'm a Dulles-based 756 captain, and have spent a considerable part of my career helping pilots trade and bid better. I'm a former PBS 1.0 instructor, and I was also part of the launch cadre for what we now call seniority-based trip trading, which has been more or less replaced by Crew Companion. But I've spent years of my life showing pilots how to integrate these two technologies in order to create a better life. So the overall strategy is PBS bid like you can't trade. The goal is to purchase your best life using not money, as we talked about in the beginning, but currency, and that currency we're going to call it seniority. I want to teach you how to learn to use PBS strategically so you can minimize the need to trip trade, and when you do trip trade, maximize the effectiveness of those trades. Trip trading simply will not fix a bad PBS bid. Why? Because PBS is the senior way to purchase a great life, and we'll discuss that and I'll show you how that works. And trip trading is a junior way to purchase a great life. So let's define the currency that we're going to use. Seniority. We all know it's more or less being able to hold what you want and avoid what you don't want. But I'm going to use a slightly different definition. I'm going to say seniority is defined by pilot behavior. We know what trips are senior and what trips are junior by the behavior of others. In general, it's the ability to avoid flying from about noon on Saturday to dinner on Sunday. It's been my observation through my 30-year career that those trips can't be traded. You will fly them. It's also the ability, now that we have holiday pay, to choose whether or not to fly any federal holiday. It's no longer the slam dunk it used to be that we would avoid them. Avoiding work on those times, or at least controlling work on those times, makes you senior. Flying great trips doesn't make you senior. I'll describe why in a few moments. Having a high category or G-line percentage does not make you senior. And why am I saying by pilot behavior? It's because of your ability to change things. If you're the #1 pilot in the domicile and you choose weekend flying, that's fine. It won't be traded. Why? Because none of the rest of us want that stuff. We may end up flying on a weekend or two, or pick a cherry trip, like I love flying Hawaii's and they often are on a weekend, but that's a choice of ours. We fully expect that we're going to go do the trip. But if you think that you're going to take your seniority in PBS, squander it, and then fix it in trading, it's never going to happen. So how do I assess my buying power? What can I realistically hold? And by hold, we're thinking in terms of quality. Great trips on great days. What can you realistically avoid? I haven't met a single pilot that wants to do a domestic all-nighter. We all hate them. So if you can avoid them, that makes you at least somewhat senior. And obviously the hint. Every month I review the PBS bid. I look at the people just above me and know that if I bid really, really well, PBS might award me some of those trips, and we'll get to that later. And I look to the people below me to see, what did I miss this month? Oh man, I didn't see that trip and it went by. I wish I'd have remembered to figure out how to sift for a trip like that and picked it. You want to spend your currency, your seniority in PBS very carefully, as you simply cannot trade for seniority. So what's your currency? How much currency do you have to spend? Well, for those in the top quartile, not me, 0 to 25% category, they can bid specific trips. They can be militant on day off needs. They can pick trips of the highest quality. They can exploit rules like deadheads on trips to make their commutes easier, or being able to pick flying on a paid holiday or not. And they can do so with few compromises in their PBS bid. Their trip trading is either non-existent, or if they're somewhat off the top, they trade for manna from heaven. So if the guy 2 spots above them gets sick and drops that Hawaii, they can take it. Or oftentimes they'll drop trips in order to coast on a lighter calendar. And since they have high quality trips, dropping their trips without pay or for vacation is pretty easy. The second quartile, that's me, above 50%, but below that top quarter. We also control every day in the calendar. We can be militant on our day off needs. I don't need to fly Christmas Day. I can merely bid around it even without vacation. I bid my ideal trips first, knowing full well I might not get them, and then I choose the best available. My trip trading strategy generally is to improve the quality of those trips on the exact same days. I generally don't try and move to a different day of flying. It doesn't work very well. The third quartile, they're below 50%, but they're still above the G line. They really have two paths they can take. Path one is a junior line bid. They better be super smart on what they can hold on weekends and what they can avoid. Somebody at the just below 50%, domestic all-nighter is not a reality, but if you're just above the G line, you're doing them. Defend only 1 or 2 day off blocks. Don't try and defend every weekend. You simply don't have the seniority for it. Near the bottom, you may not be able to defend any weekends at all. So that leaves you with path number 2. That would be a senior reserve bid. Now, we're not going to talk a lot in this first round of training about reserve bids. I'm going to talk about those in November. But one of the excellent senior reserve bids is what's called non-profile reserve. Once again, I fly with lots of pilots who don't even know what that is, such as holy days over desired holidays, then maybe a weekend off bid in the holiday months like November and December. So trip trading for this group is only available on path 1. You can only really trip trade if you've got a schedule, so it would need to be really aggressive. You'd have layered trades ready to go to try and improve every single trip. The bottom quartile, they're below the G line. If they're willing to say, I'll take a line if it's available, obviously avoid being picky on your line bids. It might be best to choose reserve if a day off block is critical. In trip trading, it's largely trip pickups only while on reserve. Trading away is nearly impossible. We have obviously the thing where you can leave a trip that you've gotten on reserve exposed for a line holder to pick up. Not terribly likely. Let's talk about the Disney wish. A wish your heart makes. To change PBS awarded workdays by trip trading. The Pilot Forum Conundrum. Hey, guys, trades are available, so why can't I dump my Friday 3-day for a Tuesday 4-day? I'm helping the company out by working an extra day. Reserve coverage is available both days. Man, if I had $1 for every time I read a post like that, I could buy everybody a steak dinner. That is a Disney wish. Let's describe why. Imagine a very, very simple domicile. 35 pilots, and they bid on 4 daily trips of various qualities that are each 4 days long. Each week, 28 pilots get 1 trip. So there's 4 pilots on Monday, 1 with the best Monday trip, and the 4th one with the worst Monday trip. And 7 pilots get 1 day to sit reserve. There's a Monday reserve. The Tuesday pilot sick drops his trip. Now remember, it's Tuesday through Friday, weekends off, and it goes open. Why can't the Saturday guy do a swap? He's the guy in the pilot forum. I don't get it. There's trades available on my day and on Tuesday. Why can't I do a swap? It's because we don't want him to do so. There's the conundrum buster. We as pilots don't want him to do that. We're always blaming the company saying, oh, it's a conspiracy theory and they don't have trades available. We don't want that, right? If we allowed it, think of the implications. It means the Saturday guy, by definition junior, because he's working a weekend, is able to steal flying from senior people. Well, wait, what do you mean steal? The Tuesday pilots with the crappy trips should be able to trade up to that much better trip on Tuesday. And if anybody's going to cover that trip, it should be the Tuesday reserve. The Tuesday reserve also has weekends off. He only works Tuesday. I bet that Tuesday reserve is the most senior pilot in the domicile. It's not a certainty that they go work, and if they don't, they were on the hook for 1 day and they're off to the races. So think of that the next time you're thinking, why can't I trade? Trading means that you're using the backdrop of what was your seniority coming out of PBS. If you came out of PBS working weekends, you are junior. Trip trading will not fix that problem. Let's take a little bit more of an in-depth look at the way PBS and trip trading deal with seniority. PBS seniority. At 41%, I choose from what is left. If I bid well, I can actually be awarded trips from those senior to me. Again, we'll talk about that later. High quality, weekend off, holiday free flying is available depending on my G-line percentage. At my percentage, there's some left. Some of the weekday flying of high quality is left, but not as much as what it would be at the top of the list. So I've got good choices. If I was at 20%, I would assume that almost all of my flying could be constructed weekend and holiday free. If I'm at 80%, I need to be realistic and realize that's probably not going to happen. If I pick weekend, holiday off flying, regardless of my G-line seniority, I can trade it easily. If I don't, I can't. Trip trading seniority is very different. I'm going to give you two stories. It's based on the quality of the trip. When I was very junior, I needed a particular Saturday off for a family event. So I bid all the great trips. They were gone. So what was left? A 3-day Baltimore. I left Baltimore at 6 a.m. on Wednesday. I left my house at 2. And I would get back into Baltimore just before midnight. So I'm getting home in the wee hours of Saturday morning, but I'd be able to make the family event. As trip trading opened, I was able to trade that trip in all likelihood for somebody who wasn't able to make their kid's soccer game. And I got a Dulles domestic trip. It was okay. Paid a little bit better and didn't have the early departure and late arrival. A few days after that, I traded it for a bunky Europe trip, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Not important what it was. On Monday of the week of that trip, I traded that bunky trip for flying Wednesday Zurich. Flying Zurich at that time was one of the most senior trips in the domicile. About 10 minutes after I got the trip awarded, my phone rang. And I pick up, I go, hello. And he goes, how did you get that trip? I went, who are you? And he goes, oh, I'm so-and-so. I knew so-and-so, years senior to me in hiring. And I asked him, well, what trip do you have? And he goes, I've got the same trip. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, flying Zurich. And I've had a trade in from day one for that Wednesday trip. And I told him, oh, I'm senior to you. And you could have heard a pin drop. He went, dude, I got you by about 2,000 numbers. I went, not this weekend. You were foolish enough to trade for a trip or to bid a trip that touches a weekend. Enjoy your trip. And I hung up. Another one. I used to bet a friend of mine that I could have the entire week of Christmas off when I was about 80% the G-line. And it's like, there's no way. There is no way you're going to do that. So one year the calendar came out and I had a similar Baltimore trip that left at 6 a.m. on the 26th of December. And my buddy went, see, I win the bet. You're going to be working Christmas week. I went, not so fast. In the very, very, very first round of trading, I vacation dropped that trip. And he came back to me, how did you do that? And I said, just imagine all the people that had Christmas Eve Zurich. They were going to be in Zurich on Christmas Day going, I'll do anything. I'll take anything. My kids are 6 and 8. I'll do anything to be opening Christmas presents with the kids. So in other words, to them, my trip looked mighty senior. So even if you're junior, which I was in both examples, weekend off, low quality flying, bought in dozens of trip trades in a process called branching. And I'm not going to go too deeply into that. But in the end, senior pilots or junior pilots with worse trades were constantly bringing my weekend off or holiday off flying into the trade, where either a senior pilot who needed to change their schedule or one lucky junior pilot who needed to improve their schedule would get my trip. My category seniority only matters in trip trading if I'm the most senior person involved in the trade. By having a senior trip, weekends off, no holiday touch, I can be brought into an incredibly senior person's trip trade because I've got something that somebody else will want. What are the implications? 1, you cannot trade to achieve seniority. It's not possible. Trip quality must sit second chair to your day off needs, period. Pilots who follow this idea can have better lives and more successful trip trading. Choosing weekend and holiday-free flying of low quality is a high-risk, high-reward approach to allow continuous trip trading to a much better calendar that you could never have been awarded as PBS started the month. Deciding I will not PBS compromise my day off needs for a better trip is a powerful philosophy. So now we're down to the final idea, the guiding philosophy as we go into trip trading and PBS bidding. Your best life is at home, not at work. Have the attitude, days I won't work when making band trip touch periods. Be realistic, but be resolved and hold on to those things for a dozen bid groups. Your second best life is at work. Take the poor trip, if that's all PBS is going to give you, to make sure you can make your daughter's birthday party. Plan to trip trade mostly in the same silo or work days, as pilot behavior makes switching hard. In plainer language, you will largely switch with the same pilots in the same area of your seniority. Stop looking for the Disney wish. Stop posting on the forum why your Saturday crappy trip isn't being picked up so you can get a Tuesday gem. You can't trade seniority for what PBS did not grant you. Trip trade by asking for the moon. Just don't complain. It won't happen. Final thought. Seniority is also measured in other ways here at United. One of my favorite, decades. I got 3 decades of seniority. Unless you have 3 decades of seniority, if you have 0 decades, it's going to be tough. So be very realistic on both your PBS bid, how long it takes to have excellent seniority, and by learning how to do PBS better, you can achieve much better results. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look at how PBS actually works.